The three words that I would choose to describe this project would be complex, demand, revealing. Complex because learning from other countries often happen in an indirect way and there is hardly any documentary evidence for it. Secondly, demand. Only if there is a homegrown need in the host country, then only learning happens and it gets implemented. Revealing because policies are often not evidence based. They are not implemented based on evidence. However, what we have learned is that countries in similar situations or which have similar backgrounds economically or human development wise, they tend to learn much more easily from the other comparable models in other countries.
Namaskar from our channel, The Consultant's View. Institutional development and capacity building nowadays are not optional, but essential requirements for any successful delivery of urban services and sustainability of urban infrastructure. It has been evolved as one of the most critical areas as cities negotiate to fulfill increasing demand for services. It enhances governance and policy formulation, ensures financial sustainability, promotes social inclusion, data management and decision support system, improves project planning and execution, ensures operational maintenance and service delivery, and also contributing to strengthening resilience and adaptability. Without strong institutional setup, through skilled human resources and its capacity building, investment in urban infrastructure is likely to lead to cursory outcomes. Institutional developments and capacity building are therefore fundamentals for creating resilient, inclusive, and sustainable urban environments. Hence, the need for institutional development becomes critical for successful outcome of any urban project. Our topic of discussion today is institutional capacity development and its role in urban infrastructure projects. To discuss on this topic, we have with us today Mr. Snehashish Raichowdhury. Namaskar, Mr. Snehashish Raichowdhury.
Namaskar.
Mr. Snehashish Raichowdhury is an ex-World Bank official, worked on projects financed by the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, USAID, DFID, JICA, IFC, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and other development organizations of repute. Entrusted in leading large-scale projects in healthcare, nutrition, environment, water and sanitation, and other related sectors in South Asia under both urban and rural settings. With more than 30 years of managerial experience, Snehashish demonstrated rich exposure in institutional strengthening, governance, strategy and policy. His long experience of working with urban local bodies as an acclaimed specialist on urban health system development and his clear understanding of the different determinants of institutional development has recognized him as one of the esteemed international consultants in South Asia. In his early days, with Bachelor's of Degree in Architecture from Jadavpur University, Snehashish started his career as an architect with international firms. After completing an MBA Finance, he later pursued to MPhil degree at BITS Pilani, Tulane University, USA, to bolster his managerial career. He is an accomplished researcher and has a number of international reports and publications to his credit. Yes, Mr. Snehashish.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure to come and talk to you on this, and thank you so much for the kind words of introduction.
So hope we can deep down to our discussion on our topic today, institutional capacity development and its role in urban infrastructure projects.
Sure.
Okay. So let me ask you, what motivated you to pursue this sector of institutional capacity development and become an expert on this when your background is engineering rather non-architect? So we want to know, for the viewers, we want to know the story behind it.
Okay. Actually, I didn't start with an idea of becoming, a practitioner in the field of institutional strengthening and capacity building and all that. That has come in the later part of my career.
Okay.
So I have quite a checkered career, if I have to say like that I started as an architect and with doing designs of buildings and all. I went into project management, from there to hospital and healthcare project management. From there, I moved on to the World Bank in the South Asia Human Development Sector in the Health, Nutrition and Population Unit. And there I started working on public health. So after that, I have had the opportunity to work across various sectors. And what I have realized over time is that institutional capacity development is a cross-cutting area.
Cross-cutting area?
Yes.
Okay.
It is not the fiefdom of any particular sector to say. And it is important, especially if you look at the development sector, it is there across all the sectors that people work on. So over time, with the opportunity that I got to work across different sectors, I looked at the governance aspects in most of them, and that gave me a good experience to know how institutional issues actually define the project success.
Exactly.
So maybe I can detail that out later in course of time,
yeah.
but that's a good overview maybe.
Okay, my next question will be, institutional capacity development is a broad area, contextual to the organizational setup of the institutions. For the viewers, please explain why it is so important to urban infrastructural consultancies, if possible with example.
Okay, so let me start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
See, these two words, institutions and organizations, are often used interchangeably, meaning that we often mean the same thing by saying these two words. But actually, the definitions are different. Going by the definition of Douglas North, Douglas North.
Okay.
He got the Nobel Prize in 1991 in institutional economics. He defined it possibly in the best possible way, which we still use today. He said institutions are formal and informal rules of the game. And
formal and informal. Okay.
Yes, the informal part is very important. The formal and informal rules of the game, and organizations are players of the game.
Oh, great.
So which means the way an organization will function will define largely on the institutions or the formal and informal rules of the game which are laid out. So that is why the institutional capacity, when we talk about those formal and informal rules of the game to be strengthened in a way that the players of the game get a chance to play it better for project success. Right?
Great, Snehashish.
So if that is the context in which we are building the institutional capacity development, let me say there are various ways of looking at it. So the policies, for example, is a core formal institution, right? The policies of an organization define. Then you have the, say, the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. Those are operating ones, but those are also institutions which define the working of the organizations. But apart from that, there are a lot of informal rules as well. For example, having worked in with the public sector, the development sector for a long time, what we see that there is also a great need to collaborate between different agencies, departments, even ministries, right? In fact, institutional capacity development has one of the most important parameters as this collaboration, the networking between different agencies. You cannot work alone. And when you talk about the urban sector, take any urban infrastructure for that matter, it involves a huge number of entities who come together to work. Yes?
Yes.
So right from the executing or the implementing agency in the form of ministries or the departments, we also have other departments which do play a role in that. We have the NGOs who do a lot of other work. There are funders, the development partners. And so there are different players. So institutional capacity development has to look at the capacity of the leadership, the organization which gives the leadership, the executing or the implementing agency, to network or to collaborate or to coordinate between all these different players for an optimum result with the development objective in perspective.
It's a complex task.
It is very complex, and that's why when you ask the first question that how one gets to work in it, it is not something that you start on day one. It is the fruit of experience of working on different projects over a long time that perhaps gives you the makes you understand the objective criteria or the importance of it, what it is and how it is to be done.
Yes. Okay, Snehashish. My next question will be, why do multilateral donor bank funded projects give so much emphasis on institutional capacity development and maybe other funding projects do not have that level of emphasis on those projects?
That's a good question. So, you know,
that's from my experience. I
yeah, of course, and of course, I understand that you are an experienced person. That's why it's coming from you. See, there are a few different aspects to that. Number one is institutional capacity development is not only critical for the development area or when you work with the public sector. It's not so. It is there in every other organization wherever you work. But it comes in the funders project in a different way for a definite reason. I think the key reason is all these funding agencies bring the funds to achieve a particular project objective for a defined period. Say 5 years, sometimes 3 years, normally 5 years. So when you come in a project mode with a definite project end in mind, you would like to know that when the project ends, you leave something behind. Otherwise, this entire money goes down the drain. So how do you do that? The point is, every time this starts, I mean, just giving money does not resolve problems, right? Because the capacity to spend is important. If somebody gives me today 200 crores, I will not be able to spend because I don't have a plan. I don't know how to monitor that plan. I don't know what I want to achieve. So all these things play a part. If you know all that, then only the 200 crores I'll be able to make use of in a particular way. The same thing happens in a funders project.
Yeah.
So when they do that, they want to see the impact this particular funding will make at the end of the project. Now, to do that, the capacity has to be improved, which means it includes everything, right from the culture that starts from top down, changing that, the kind of organizational development that you have to do, to the ways one can collaborate, to the different human resource capacities that you have in the organization, and how you collaborate all these agencies together to get the desired goal. So that's what it is.
So cultural issues also there.
Very much, and that's a very good point that you pick up, because cultural issues, I mean, there are various ways. For example, if you, in a particular country, the people would not like to challenge the seniors directly. That's part of their culture. But in, say, in other countries, say in Anglo-Saxon culture, that is not an issue. I mean, you have to be objective. So that is a very basic example I gave, but there are very different kinds of environment in which you have to work.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Yeah.
What are the major capacity gaps presently affecting institutional performances? If you can highlight on this.
Well, there are many different reasons for which these things happen. But talking in terms of urban infrastructure, as I said, the urban local bodies, which actually are supposed to play the leadership role in creating this, there's, which I already mentioned, there's a lot of focus on, say, coordination. Now, there are lots of informal institutions
that
which
you
come
talked
in the
about.
way.
Yeah.
Yes. For example, in public sector, this is very common, that the agency or the department or the ministry which has the higher budget, the secretary of that particular ministry or department generally will not come if an interagency coordination committee headed by a secretary with a lower budget power calls him for the meeting. This is an issue.
Okay.
Now, without understanding this, if you try to formulate a project that, assuming that all the different agencies will keep collaborating together, then it will fail. Now, these are the things that one needs to understand. And this is very common. So what do you do? In such cases, in the state, you need to have the chief secretary to head that particular coordination meeting. Then all others will come. Or for the national level, it would be cabinet secretary. But also you have to be realistic that these people at the top of the organization, these cabinet secretaries or chief secretaries, they are very busy people. So many a times we see that even though we try to circumvent that problem of coordination between different departments or ministries by having this head man at the top, they do not get enough time very often to attend the meetings. So meetings do not happen. So for example, you have
it will delay the purpose.
Yes, totally. For example, you have a schedule of quarterly meetings, and you will see, sometimes we have seen that even in 1 year that meeting has not happened. Because those people are busy, they have different priorities and all that. It's nobody's fault. But those are things which come in the way of the capacity development. And unless these things happen, your project outcomes will never be reached. So that's a big issue. Many a times I have seen in some projects that assumptions were made that if you just have coordination committees, everything falls into the right places and people start working like they should, but it doesn't happen that way because of the reasons I said. And you start attacking the wrong problem. So you think that by giving more money or giving very high skilled people, you will reach the success. Of course, those are needed, but not without addressing this. These are very important. So these which seemingly it is peripheral, but these sometimes become the core. It's like that Mirza Ghalib's famous sher.
Yeah.
उम्र भर गालिब यही भूल करता रहा, धूल चेहरे पर थी और आईना साफ करता रहा.
Wow.
What it means is, it's Mirza Ghalib's famous shairi. What it means is, through my entire life, I have been trying to clean the mirror while the dust was on my face. Basically meaning that I was trying to solve the wrong problem. Yes. Beautiful way of saying it.
Yeah.
So we were actually trying to solve the wrong problem often, and that's why things do not happen the way it should. This is just one of these examples, and there are many layers of that, many different forms in many different countries, different organizations. So that itself is going to be a long list. I think
Yeah.
this kind of
Yeah, yeah,
conveys
yeah.
the message.
Yeah, yeah.
that
You
I
address
want
the main thing.
to- Yes.
Okay, and also if I extract one point from your this explanation, that it is, if I make it to be analogous with the technical designs, what you have said is like the basic data or basic parameter for designs. Unless you take the appropriate parameter, you cannot make the design appropriately or accurately. It is like that.
Absolutely. I mean, the big example of that, a common day example would be software programs. You see a lot of very reputed software companies, they create software for the public, but those are not user friendly. It's not because the people who did it, they were technically less proficient, but they did not understand what the client needs.
Yeah.
So often we fail there. So there are many different examples of that. But yes, what you are saying, it's like that. We need to understand the different layers which are involved in this particular game.
Exactly. Okay, Snehashish, the experts basically propose strategies for capacity development of the institutions, government departments, and also to autonomous bodies, and also assist the department to implement it. What is the success rate? How to measure its performance? So I hope you understand the problem, the question.
Yes, I do. But unfortunately, I don't think there is a particular number or percentage one can speak of, because for the simple reason that every project is different, every implementing agency or the people who are stakeholders in it are different, every country is different, so everything is very different. So there is not a standard percentage you can say that the success rate is this. It differs across sectors, countries, and various other projects, formalities, I mean for project forms and all. The formalities change within the project itself. So there are multiple parameters which will decide that. But what I can say is the success rate within the time period, in my experience, if the project is for 3 years or say 5 years, it is very often we see that whatever we desire to achieve doesn't get achieved in that particular frame of time.
Okay.
It is often delayed.
Okay.
And the reasons are multifold. As I said, one is that coordination and other issues that we have. There is also a very interesting issue I got in one of the South Asian countries, which is especially in the urban local body context. For example, I was working in an urban health systems project in one of the South Asian countries. And what I saw is, I think this is a common story in many others, which is the agenda of the elected representative, say the mayor, is very different from what the project professionals want to achieve.
Of course, it's quite natural.
And a big thing, for example, since this was a health project, what we saw is that health was never considered a core part of work for an urban local body. The incentive to do health services was very low. They thought it belongs to Ministry of Health or whatever. It is not our job to do it, even for urban health. The second reason is the incentive of any elected representative is to see visible development. For example, making a road or a bridge or a culvert, which during election they can go and tell people, see, this is what we have done, so vote for us. It is very difficult, they think, that I have improved the health services of this particular city. That is very well taken. That is possibly difficult because it's a longer term and not so visible. That's a very common thing that happens, that the elected representatives do not give it enough weightage. So because of that, the allocation of budget into health is reduced because it is not a priority area. Because of that, the services suffer, and because of which the development in health does not occur. So it's a continuum like that, and it's a same story in many places. But you have to create those success stories in front of them. We have to convince them that in many other countries, the elected representatives have got huge results just by improving the health systems in many countries, in developing countries itself. Now, those are some of the issues that you see and which actually affect the projects.
Yes. If I understand correctly, one point, that means in order to evaluate the performance, it's basically an intangible output. So to make the intangible evaluate and the success of an intangible output, you have to give time, more time. That means if you can give more time, then there may be a possibility to measure the output. That's my understanding.
Partly right, yes,
Yeah.
lot of it is intangible, but at the same time, as you understand, this is actually a big contribution of the funding agencies, of the
Yeah.
development partners,
Okay.
that they create something which is called the results framework. The results framework actually looks at, if this is the outcome I want to reach finally, then what are the outputs I need in year 1, year 3, year 5, like that.
Okay.
And based on that, what are the inputs I need to give, right? So if I see that certain outputs are reached, that means my outcome will be reached.
That's how can we evaluate
Yes.
that thing. Okay.
For example, if you have a particular school which is made very nicely, but no student enrolls into it, your outcome has failed. So you have to create a results framework which shows over time how things are moving so that you are on the right track. So
Okay.
yes, it is an intangible in a way, but that has to be converted into tangible outputs
Output.
so that it is monitored.
Yeah, thank you. Well explained, Snehashish. What are the bottlenecks you faced during implementation of the institutional strategies? Tell us some of the stories behind it.
Oh, there are multiple on the implementation strategy, and some I already have spoken about, the coordination issues with the elected representatives, the issues, all these things have happened. I mean, it's a long story that way because the problems are manifold and different types in different places. But one interesting part is, somebody told me in a project long back that when these funding agencies have given us a lot of money to create a project management unit, and the project management unit is housed with good professionals, many of them hired from outside and some from internally from the government transferred there. So they are getting a lot of trainings, a lot of capacity building efforts are happening, some even going abroad to get some trainings, some inland, and continuously on the job a lot of trainings happen. And it's a different way of doing things for which the global literature, the global experience, all this is shared with them, which actually enriches them. But at the end of the day, some people ask this question, and very lightly so, that after 5 years, you people will go away. This project team will be disbanded. So this island of excellence, which was created with so much resources, will not remain for long. And what will you do then? That's one. It's a big problem. That the capacity then gets dissipated because internal people get transferred in different areas where this particular training may not be useful anymore. And the consultants or the other contractors who are put in place, they will go away after the project ends. Because the sustainability is dependent on the funding. And in many developing countries, that sustainability is not ensured because the funding does not come through.
Yes.
That is a big problem. And there are various others as well. Maybe if you ever get a time to talk for a long time, we can speak about those. But if you have any further follow through, I can.
Okay, let me go to the next one.
Yeah.
I understand from this discussion, whatever best and honest input is given from technical side, if capacity of the institution is not properly developed, the whole purpose gets collapsed, mainly from operation and maintenance perspective. Do you think that capacity development of the institutions should be included as a chapter in the engineering curriculum. Hope you can understand what I want to say. At least it will render an overview to the engineers on the wholesomeness of any project.
Well, that's an interesting concept, but as I told you, institutional capacity development, yes, there are certain basic theories or some basic understanding about it which can be written down from others' experience. How do we learn? We learn from our experience and we learn from others' experience. Why do we read? Because we read to learn from others' experience. And that actually is good utilization of time, of course. So if you have the basic building blocks of what is required for capacity, institutional development, capacity development, or there are various other nomenclatures which are used in any form. So basically, if you do all that, so I think including that in the engineering course, I think it is not a bad idea, especially because all this is a very analytical approach, analytical process. And engineers, by dint of their education or training, they are analytical people. So I think it is good for them to have an overview.
Yeah.
But having said that, as I said, it is not something that you can understand or let alone do just by reading a book. So it takes a long time. But also the benefit of that would be an engineer, when he or she graduates, at some point will lead a team, will be in project management, will be in a leadership role. And whenever one is in a leadership role, this institutional capacity development issues will come into the fore, right? So having some theoretical knowledge of that in the college itself is not bad.
Yeah.
And maybe one can develop or possibly hone the skills or the understanding of this particular area once they get a chance to work on it. So
Also,
maybe yes, why
also
not?
you know that if the institutions can hire or request professionals like you who has enough experience on this institutional development to give some lectures to get an overview instead of putting it into the curriculum, they can have some type of some classes in the course in the last year or something like that. At least they can have an overall idea of the how project runs. You know?
Yes, I think some visiting lectures
Yeah,
on that
like that.
is always possible. You can do that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the issue is one has to relate to the practical context, the aspect of it. Otherwise, you cannot do. And an interesting point which I could have possibly spoken about in the challenges part, but here also I think it is quite relevant.
Yeah, carry on.
You know, the issue is even if you have a very good documentation of a particular project where the institutional work was a success, it can be in any country, yes. Well, good documentation, I must say, is essential, and that's very good for people to know and understand what has happened. But if you, for example, if you put that in a college curriculum, and if the students read that, and if they think that this is a model in which I can do it everywhere else, it will not happen. You know, Harvard uses a very nice term. There is a very common misconception that what works in or worked in some country in Africa will work in another developing country in Asia. It will not.
Exactly.
Because these requirements are homegrown and they fit only the context of that particular country.
Exactly.
It is not possible to import one solution from one place into another. Harvard calls it very affectionately, they call it isomorphic mimicry. You know, iso is same,
yeah.
morph is form, and mimicry, you understand, I mean, trying to do something, looking at another example. So when you try to do a mimicry of something of the same form in another place, it doesn't work. It has to be homegrown. Now that is where the experience comes in. But having said that, yes, if there is enough emphasis on this kind of work or projects that a college course wants to bring into their curriculum, there's no reason why it cannot be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be
They can
a
think
good
of it.
way of giving them an overview at least of how it is going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. My last question now. What message you want to give to the aspiring young engineers who would like to pursue this as you did? Do you think engineering background can provide an added mileage over others? If yes, why?
Okay, well, yes and no. To be fair, I have seen people from all walks of life working in this institutional capacity development area, from economists to engineers to medical practitioners, I mean in the healthcare field, of course. So there are people from different walks of life and with very different backgrounds who have come and worked in this particular field and have become very successful as well. The very reason is it is a very cross-disciplinary field. So maybe we can look at it like a circle where you can enter from any point. So engineering is of course one of those points through which you can enter, and it gives you some added advantage as an analytical person, yes.
Yeah.
But there are various other things that you have to learn on the job, because that doesn't come directly through the textbook or in any other field unless you work in this kind of projects with the right kind of organizations that fit. And what I can tell you that the experience very differently. I mean, they are very different when you work on the same project with different agencies. Just like in construction, when you work with the designers, you have a totally different experience than when you are working with the contractor. Similarly here, when you work with the funding agency, you have a totally different perspective as compared to when you are working with, say, directly the urban local body or the consulting organization or the government or in the different agencies which come into play. So all these will definitely add to the expertise or the understanding, but it is important to value the perspective that other professionals from other fields bring into this, or the different stakeholders in the program also bring into this. I think.
Thank you, Snehashish. Thank you for giving time and sharing your perspective to us. I should admit that the discussion today has been enriching and praiseworthy. And lastly, a token of appreciation for your participation in this channel and discuss on the institutional capacity development and its role in urban infrastructure projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Parthajeet. It was really a pleasure to talk to you on this and wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar.